myself. So my name's Chrissi, and whilst I am studying a PhD out of Loughborough, I consider myself an industry person, and I run a small business. So if this is slightly less academic than you were hoping for, apologies in advance. Okay. So what I want to talk to you today is fairness. And fairness is a subject that I'm particularly biased towards, so do please bear that in mind. Now, I first stumbled upon the topic when I started to look into my academic career. I was looking at equality, and I wanted to find out how do we actually get some improvement in equality in the construction sector. And one of the things that I found when I used to work in the industry, my jobs there were as a setting out engineer and site manager, is that when people went on training courses for equality, they'd come back and told me how I wasted a day of their time. Well, I sat there confused, because when I was a woman, it was apparently my fault. Whenever anything about equality happened, I tended to have more comments rather than less. And I found that really interesting, which is one of the reasons why I set up my business and do the work that I do, is to find out how do we actually move equality forward, rather than continuing to do the same things that we've always done that may or may not have a real result. And this is where I stumbled upon fairness, and you look at it through a lens of organisational justice, just to give you the theory there. But I don't just think this is important to equality, I actually think it's important to an awful lot of other things. I think it has a massive impact on BIM, and I'm sure someone's going to shout me down in a minute, but I'm going to go and say words about BIM anyway, knowing very little about it. What I do think I appreciate about BIM is that more than anything else, it's a collaborative process. And so for me, we need to understand how we make people work collaboratively. Otherwise, in my mind, it is destined to fail. And having spent more than 10 years working in the construction industry, I love it dearly, but I consider it a bit like a grumpy uncle. That I love it, but uncle blimey, there's some things that we need to change. Lean, exactly the same. For me, the best lean processes work when we've got the best teams, and that shouldn't be seen as any real coincidence. Collaborative working, obviously. Innovation. We have more innovation when we work better together and we feel free to put our ideas forward. And profit, exactly the same. It comes from that good working. Sustainability, even health and safety. I genuinely believe that all of these things can be underpinned by fairness. And instead of trying to tell you why, I'm going to try and show you. This may or may not work. Okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity to win a £20 note. Just before I tell you what we're going to do, I did try this at an RICS conference. We had 250 people there. Not one of them managed to get the paper in the basket. So please, come on, let's do better. Okay, so this is no brag. It's a very real £20 note that I will give to the winner. Okay? So if I can't get your engagement through hard work, I will drive it out of you. So what I'm going to do is I want to place this box here, if everyone can see it. There's bits of scrap paper that I gave you before. I'd like you to put your names and your organisations, whether that be university or company, on that paper. Very importantly, I do not want anybody to stand anywhere away from their seat. You can stand, but you cannot move away from it. Okay? Everybody clear on those rules? When the nervous gigglings of the people in the back. Yes, Lord.
I'm out of the way.
I'm not changing seats.
I haven't got paper. I have paper. It's not fair.
Okay, did you not get a
No,
piece of
don't worry,
paper?
don't worry.
Oh,
I think I'd win.
The best chance.
Okay, so has everybody got their names written down? So let me just check I've got my rule. Scrunch your paper up into a ball, or make it plain, actually. I don't mind what you do. But you must stay in your seat. Now, when you say go, I want you to try and get it into this box. Now, it is my decision as to whose was the first. I will have no rowing. Okay, I have the draw today. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, go. Is everybody clear? The box is here. All the way over. You can stand.
Yeah.
But I see those legs wandering into the aisle. By your seats. 1, 2, 3, go. This one. You did so much better than our ICS. Honestly, 250 people. That was very good. Okay, so I've got blimey. Jolem Helms from St. Goban. Does anyone recognise that writing? Sorry, my pronunciation on most things is terrible. What did we think about that?
Can we have another go?
Did we feel that that was fair?
No.
No, but why not? You all had exactly the same opportunity, didn't you?
You always run a skill opportunity. You already run a prize last night as well, that's why it's not fair.
Well, I did tell him before where to sit. Okay, you might have all had the same opportunity to win the £20, but it wasn't fair in the way that it was worked out. Now, raise your hands if you felt particularly that it was unfair. I'm liking that there's a little bit less unfairness on the front row than there is. But interestingly, there is still people saying that it was unfair even where they had more of an opportunity. Okay? Raise your hand if you cared that it was unfair. Okay? No one so much. I purposely put it up to 20 so that people would care more. I'm not going higher than that, like £100,000. So interestingly, the people that did care more, the few, were right at the back rows. Raise your hands if you'd have liked to have changed seats. Yeah, there's a few. Oh look, there's a couple of people there. I just don't even need £20. Okay, so why does this matter? So kind of internally we have this sense of equilibrium. And if anyone had a feeling when they felt that it was unfair, kind of a gripe, I want you to stick with that feeling. Because we're going to talk about it a little bit more in a second with regards to the workplace. But what we tend to want to do is if we feel that things are unfair and we've been given too much, like our people in the front row, most people, not all, but most people are pretty decent and they want to equal out that equilibrium. Because quite often when you find at work, when everyone's working really hard, you'll have individuals that actually put that extra in. They want to equal things out. What we find the other way, if we feel that things aren't fair, then we tend to kind of withdraw a little bit. We tend to, again, want to even out those scales. And so what that tends to look like is here you had the chance to win £20. Why you got it was the way that the seats were chosen. That had a big impact. And you weren't told about this. I actually told Apollo, I was dead cheeky, but he didn't move, so good on him. Miles there, right? But if we think about this in terms of organisations, imagine, say, I'm paying you £80,000 a year to come into a new job. For some I know that's going to be too less, but I can't go too high. It gets out of control. But then say you move into this new job and you find somebody who's working with you is getting paid £90,000 a year to do exactly the same role, exactly the same amount of hours. That initial elation, that happiness that you felt with your initial salary, suddenly that disappears. But nothing changed. Nothing changed for you at all. But yet, somehow, this still inspires people to put less in. Now, what we find is then if we were to tell people, well, hang on, that person's been with the company for 5 years more, and we pay an extra £2,000 a year more as a loyalty scheme, we tend to find that people reconcile with that a bit better. We call that procedure. The procedure, the way that we made our decisions, is better. And then finally, of course, it matters that we told them in the first place. There's no point in having that good procedure if we never bothered to tell anybody about it. But these things have a massive impact upon us within teams and within organisations. There's lots of lovely research on this, but I chose not to bring it today. I just wanted to talk to you quite plainly. So if we sense things are unfair, it can lead to a reduction in our productivity. And we can kind of see that. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands for it, but just have a think about if you've ever experienced that within your working lives. I have. I hope that just doesn't make me a really bad person. The research backs me up on this. It's an increase in what we call personally deviant behaviour, which sounds far more exciting than it actually is. Personally deviant behaviour is when we try and take down other individuals within the organisation to try and equalise things. So whether that be gossiping or racial slurs or sexual harassment, these are the types of things that carry on. There's organisationally deviant behaviour, things like theft and sabotage. We turn into an individualistic culture, which kind of makes sense. If I trust my organisation to look after me, I can get on with the business of making the project work and other things happen. If I don't trust the business or the project to look after me, I've got to look after myself. Okay? And where does that leave everybody else? We get this job's worth attitude and do what we pay for. Now, for me, I hope you can understand why I think that if we start to put equality practices into that kind of environment, they might not work so well. But I want you to think about it within your own things, around BIM and around Lean. How well do you think that these would work in these environments? But if, on the other hand, because it's not all bad news, if our organisations and our projects are seen as fair, something kind of beautiful happens. We have increased productivity because we all feel like we're in it together and we're working together. We trust the project and we want to put in. We get a collective culture. We have increased altruism, sportsmanship, courtesy, civic virtue and conscientiousness. more likely to follow organisational rules, which I think is of particular importance to things like BIM and Lean. And there's a decrease in discrimination. Fairness perceptions have a better response than job satisfaction, which is something that I find massively interesting. I can hate the work that I do, but if I feel that it is a fair environment that I'm working in, I'm likely to put more in. So why it matters? Another thing that I just wanted you to think about, maybe I had too many things for you to think about, but I'll go with it anyway, was around organisation and industry engagement, which is something that is at my very heart. I don't believe that there's enough of a conversation between the two. And some of the times I think that that's because, as an industry, we're very careful of risk. And often when we're presenting things that work in some areas that don't work in others, we don't always know why that is. And actually trying to understand the fairness perceptions of projects and organisations before we go in and ask our questions about BIM and Lean might help us to find out those answers. So, to wrap up, so what now? Because I'm not just here for your charming company, that is delightful. There's three things I would like you to think about. One is conducting more research into the impact of fairness. I would love to see much more in construction to see if it really does impact on BIM and Lean and all of these other areas. Two, considering fairness on the impact on your research. So maybe just doing some precursor questions to finding out what the fairness situation is before the rest of your research goes on. If you are interested in any of my academic work or our practical work, please do feel free to come and have a chat to me later. Of course, I'll love you all the more if you do it while helping me tidy up. Thank you.